Hello, my name is Pastor Wayne Fitzpatrick. Ever since the inception of Homo sapiens, better known to us as mankind on planet Earth, the questions of the ages has been asked. Who am I? Where did I come from? What is my purpose? Did an intellectual being we call God create us, or are we a simple byproduct of a chemical equation that spawned the universe and life as we know it? On today's program, we're going to talk about the origin of man and God's plan for man on Christian Issues for Today.
We all go through life accepting what theologists have told us about the Bible. But what happens when questions are raised about our fundamental beliefs? A principle that cannot be explained. A theory that defines reason. A surprising and unexpected answer. To encounter such principles firsthand may change your life forever. Face to face with the greatest questions of the ages, the Bible's most profound mysteries reach out and touch your life in ways you never imagined possible on Christian Issues for Today.
You know, the conversation is very important. We have 3 bullet points here. Who am I? Where did I come from? And what is my purpose? We're going to focus on what is mankind's purpose on planet Earth. I asked you the question first.
Yes, you know, when you ask about what is mankind's purpose here on the earth, you have to be able to explore the 2 factions that are here that talk about the creation of man. It's going to come from the scientific and the religious community. If that's the case, both of them are going to have 2 different answers.
But you know what, my friend? We're talking about only the spiritual aspect of this question.
Okay.
We're not going to relate it naturally. We're not going to use the scientific principles.
Okay.
Spiritually speaking, what is our purpose?
And I think that's a great question, and I'm glad we're going to be going through it today. And I believe it's a great purpose. It's a huge purpose that's going to shock a lot of people what our real purpose is.
Our real purpose is.
Because I don't believe a lot of people, maybe just even coming into the Christian community, understand what is my purpose. Yes, they know God's there, and they know God wants to save them and bring them to heaven.
Many people have denoted this prime directive to one thing: a successful life,
Yes.
a corporeal existence of life on the plane that we know it.
Yes.
And this is the purpose of God for us. We were not created for that purpose only. Okay?
Right.
You students of theology, let's go over to Genesis, the first chapter. We'll have Minister Meadows read that, Genesis 1:28. And we're going over, Deacon, to Daniel, 7th chapter, verse 10. And we're going to get into the purpose of our existence on planet Earth. Let's first read Genesis 1:28.
And God blessed them, and God said unto them, Be fruitful and multiply, and replenish the earth, and subdue it, and have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the fowl of the air, and over every living thing that moveth upon the earth.
Genesis 1:28. Multiply and replenish the earth. Key word is what?
Replenish.
Replenish. First part of our answer is right there, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Replenish the earth. And so it is quite evident that the earth had a pre-civilization prior to the dawn of man.
That's true.
And we are to replace that society and, should we say, our allegiances to who? God and his ordinances.
Yes.
Now, what society was on planet Earth that 1:28 of Genesis we have to fulfill? Let's read 7 and 10 of Daniel first.
A fiery stream issued and came forth from before him. Thousands ministered unto him, and 10,000 times 10,000 stood before him. The judgment was set, and the books were opened.
The judgment was set and the books were opened, so we're going to eliminate that. But just the first part of that verse. Out came a fiery stream, and 10,000 times 10,000 ministered unto him. Now, we need to break down the 10,000 times 10,000. We need to go over to Colossians 1:16. Colossians 1:16 is going to break down the administrative ranks of the angels at their point of origin, which Deacon Tim just read in Daniel 7 and 10. When the fiery stream was completed, we see that we have a host of angels in all of their respectable ranks and administrative positions. Let's read that, Minister Mills.
For by him were all things created that are in heaven and that are in earth, visible and invisible, whether they be thrones, or dominions, or principalities, or powers. All things were created by him and for him.
So we just got a administrative breakdown of some of the angels,
Yes.
principalities and powers, and we can have cherubims and cherubims, and authorities, okay, and dominions are part of what? The angelic rank.
Yes.
Now, these angelic beings had to be somewhere.
Yes.
Remember now, what is our purpose? Multiply and replenish the earth. So, are we correct to say that the angels were on planet Earth prior to the dawn of man as we know it? Absolutely so. If you go over to, I believe, the 14th chapter of Isaiah, verses 12 through 14, it speaks about the location of the angels, okay, prior to our creation. Isaiah 1 and 4, actually not one, correction, Isaiah 14, 12 through 14. Now this is very important, my friends. We have to see this, compare this. The angels are created and they are given divine positions somewhere in the universe. Let's read that.
How art thou fallen from heaven, O Lucifer, son of the morning? How art thou cut down to the ground, which didst weaken the nations? For thou hast said in thine heart, I will ascend into heaven. I will exalt my throne above the stars of God. I will sit also upon the mount of the congregation in the sides of the north. I will ascend above the heights of the clouds. I will be like the Most High.
So our signature is located where? On earth.
Yes.
On earth.
Even though we have one denominator that is introduced to us, O Lucifer, how art thou fallen from heaven? His original creation took place in the heavens. And the angels, remember our series on the end time series, we did talk about the heresies of science when it comes to Genesis 1 and 1. And Genesis 1 and 1, the heavens and the earth is already created. The first order of creation, which you read in the opening statements, 7 and 10 of Daniel's, the angels were the first thing that God created. They are the highest order of creation. And according to Job, the 38th chapter of Job, verses 1 through 7, particularly verses 1 through 6, gives us a definition of how the earth was created. And the Bible says in verse 7, there was a heavenly witness there. The angels witnessed the creation of the universe, and they gave praise.
Yes.
Okay? So they watched the creation of the universe. So therefore, Lucifer, before his name was Satan, meaning adversary to God, was with God where? In the heavenlies.
Yes.
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 How are thou fallen from heaven? Point of origin, where you originated from. Okay?
Yes.
But then it says later on in the passages of Isaiah 14, 12 through 14, Lucifer said in his heart, I will ascend into heaven. Take note, Satan did not say it. It says Lucifer. So it's apparent that Lucifer was in his divine appointment on planet Earth after he was created. He was not the adversary of God, because Satan, the word Satan means adversary. He was still in communion. He was still in a relationship. He still was sovereign to his creator. But he said in his heart that he will ascend into heaven. Therefore, he was not in heaven when the war began, but he was where? On planet Earth.
Yes.
So it's apparent that the angels ruled planet Earth prior to the dawn of man.
Yes.
Okay?
Okay.
And so he ascended into heaven to start the war, and we'll see this in Revelation 12 and 4 in just a little bit if time permits, how he drew a third of the stars out of heaven. And so now we see that the forces of Michael and Gabriel and the rest of the angels that remained loyal to him cast him out. They defeated him.
Yes.
Okay, now, numerically speaking, we see that in Revelation 12 and 4 that he drew a third of the stars out of heaven.
Yes.
2/3 of the stars represent allegory symbol of angels. Remember now in the Bible, when you see sons of God, it means angels. Stars mean angels, okay? And so they have the angel definition have different classification of meanings to it with different words. he drew a third of the stars or angels out of heaven. And this third that he drew, they were in all of the classifications of Colossians 1 and 16, which Minister Mel's read. So you have some principalities he deceived. We have some powers he deceived. Right. And even though that says in Ephesians 6 and 12 through 17, we fight not against flesh and blood, but against principalities and powers. Okay, I'm quite sure there was some cherubims, because Lucifer himself was a cherubim.
That's right.
So some cherubims fell, some dominions also fell, and some authorities, these different types of angels, fell. Part of that 1/3, Revelation 12 and 4, denominated stars. And so the forces of heaven met the forces of Satan now, okay, and they were overthrown back to the earth. Key word, back to the earth, proves again that there was a pre-civilization before Genesis 1, 26 and 27, right, where he said, let us create man in our own image. The question again is asked, what is the purpose of man? Well, we just showed you, multiply and
replenish the earth.
Because the earth had a pre-civilization before his creation.
Yes. You know, Pastor, I've enjoyed how you have actually done this in investigative dialogue that you've just given us and taken us back to the scene of the crime.
Right.
In showing that this pre-civilization, this angelic host that occupied the earth. Now, am I correct in assuming that this was an eternal state that was...
right. Genesis 1 and 1 was eternal.
Okay.
Okay. Now, this is before the restoration of the earth in Genesis 2, 1 and 2 through 14.
Okay.
Okay. The result of the war, 12 and 3, 4 Revelation, okay, the result of it is in Genesis 1 and 2 when he says that the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the what? The waters. And there was darkness upon the face of the earth. Okay? Yes. Darkness. Remember in Genesis 1 and 1, the earth and the universe is in harmony.
Yes.
Okay? Quickly go over to Isaiah, the 45th chapter of Isaiah, okay? We're going to look at verse, I believe, number 18, and that is in reference to Genesis 1 and 1, so it will contradict Genesis 1 and 2 when it says that the earth was void and dark. Let's read that.
For thus saith the Lord that created the heavens, God himself that formed the earth and made it. He hath established it. He created it not in vain. He formed it to be inhabited. I am the Lord, and there is none else.
So he formed the earth to be inhabited.
Yes, he did.
Now, use your wisdom here. You use your wisdom here. If he formed the earth to be inhabited, the earth, according to Genesis 1 and 1, was formed at that time.
Yes.
He said, I formed it to be inhabited. I will ascend into heaven, exalt my throne above the stars of God. Are you getting this, Deacon?
I'm getting this. I have a question, though.
Inhabited.
Yes.
Inhabited. I'm going to say it one more time. Inhabited. He formed the earth. The earth was formed in Genesis 1 and 1. Yes. It was inhabited, wasn't it?
Yes, it was.
See that? It was inhabited. Because in Genesis 1 and 1, man was not created yet. But he said, I wanted the earth to be inhabited. And so he didn't just create the earth just for us, 1 and 26 and 27 Genesis, but the earth was created for what? For the angels to rule and the entire universe.
Yes.
And
okay.
That makes sense now?
Yes,
what's your question?
I had a question. This, say if somebody out there says, well, it says that replenish the earth. Some might say, what about Cro-Magnon man? Or what about the Neanderthal man?
Okay, let's talk about the Jurassic period, the Cretaceous period, the dinosaurs. Let's talk about Neanderthal man, the Cro-Magnon man. Where do they fit in at? It's obvious that they fit in the time frame in Genesis 1 and 1, okay? Not Genesis 2 through 14 of the first chapter, but Genesis 1 and 1, which is a span of probably 13 billion years, okay?
Okay.
Somewhere they can fit, that's enough time to fit in there.
Yes, it is.
Now, should we say anthropologists and even the medical science arena says that the Cro-Magnon man, the Neanderthal man, and present modern day Homo sapiens share a DNA, don't we?
Yes.
With the chimpanzees. And this is why they like to eliminate God. Don't eliminate God. He just used it as a pattern. Deacon, go to the 8th chapter of Hebrews, verse number 5. I'm going to show you what God has a pattern. He uses a standardized pattern for everything he does. just because we have the same DNA makeup of the lower life form, namely chimpanzees and gorilla. If you want to use the Cro-Magnon man, I'm not an anthropologist, or the Preanimites, you want to call them, if you can see the same DNA structure there, it doesn't mean that it's called evolution. God just used a standardized pattern of how he does things. Let's read that.
Who serve unto the example and shadow of heavenly things, as Moses was admonished of God when he was about to make the tabernacle. For see, saith he, that thou make all things according to the pattern showed to thee in the mount.
There's a pattern, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
So Moses had to follow a pattern. And he gave them the pattern. I believe it's located in the Exodus, if I'm correct, verse 13, chapter 13, correction, talks about the creation of the Ark of the Covenant, and he told them how to do it.
Yes.
Okay?
Yes.
There's a pattern, 1 in 26 and 27 of Genesis. Let us make man in our own image. Man was made after the Cro-Magnon man. Man was made after the Preanimites, what you like to call,
Right,
okay? Neanderthals. And the DNA through medical science has been aligned, hasn't it?
Yes.
He just kept a part of the pattern.
Standard pattern.
Okay,
Yes.
standard
Yes.
pattern.
Yeah, he just kept part of the pattern. He said, I'm not going to make a new type of molecule to make these indigenous creatures we call mankind. I'm going to abstract some of the pattern, the DNA that I used in the original creation, Genesis 1 and 1, to form them.
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
You know, Pastor, it's wonderful to see an explanation that can be acceptable because you've used biblical principle to do that. The distinguishing factor between the Preanimite man or those life forms that existed is that man became a living soul.
Right.
You know, and that is a very distinguishing fact that separates us from them. But it takes out of the hand from science,
You know what?
the evolution.
Let me say this, my friend. If we can see how man was created from the dust of the ground, flush, and like I said, I'm not an anthropologist. Modern Homo sapiens, flush, is made up from dust of the ground.
Yes.
And I am quite sure, without a shadow of a doubt, that the Neanderthal man, the Cro-Magnon man, flush was made of the same thing,
Yes.
dust.
Yes.
Wow. Never
Dust.
thought of it that way.
Dust. The pattern, he kept some of the pattern.
He did.
Yes.
But he said, let us make man in our
Own
Own
image.
image.
The pattern he didn't use for the Cro-Magnon man or the Neanderthal man was his image.
You're right.
He used that image for us, abstracting some of the DNA to make us as we are presently today. I'm not using evolution, I'm using spiritualism.
Yes.
Okay,
Gotcha.
the Bible, the thought matrix of God. Okay, so we see that we are here to replenish the earth. Now, we just added two factors. We've seen that the angels was part of the earth,
Yes.
which we're going to get into in Ezekiel 20, 11 through 18, speaks about Lucifer, and it's called a metaphor to the king of Tyrus. And we see that the Cro-Magnon man and the Neanderthal man was also on planet Earth prior to the development or the creation of modern man, which we call Homo sapiens. Same pattern is used, though.
Yeah.
Okay, so they were on planet Earth first. Here is the key to 1 in 28 of Genesis: multiply and replenish the earth. If the Cro-Magnon man was here, which he was here, it's gone. Neanderthal took over. They replenished them, didn't they?
Yes.
Yep. Yeah, you're right.
Okay. Now we replenish in reverse order: Neanderthal man, the Cro-Magnon man, the angels.
Yes. Yes. You
Okay.
can see that. You really can.
Replenish the earth, because they were on the earth at one time, weren't they?
Yes.
All three, I would say, indigenous type of life forms. Angels first, Cro-Magnon man second, Neanderthal man third, fourth, Homo sapiens, modern man as we know it, 2013. Okay? How we look at it, Genesis 1 and 28 has to come to fruition. Someone has to replenish the earth, and he selected us. What is my purpose? Replenishing the earth. You have to understand God's plan for man. He has a plan for man. Now, remember in Genesis 7 and 10, out came a fiery stream.
Yes.
10,000 times 10,000,000.
Yes.
Okay? You gave an administrative breakdown, showed us in the Bible, Colossians 1 and 16, the name of the administrations or the angels, which is part of Daniel 7 and 10.
Yes.
And although it doesn't say cherubim and seraphim, we know that cherubims and seraphims was part of 7 and 10 of Daniel, because Lucifer, before he fell, was a cherubim.
That's right.
So we know some of the cherubims
Right.
also were deceived. If the cherubims were deceived, some of the seraphims were deceived, etc., etc. They were on the earth again. Revelation 12 and 4, Satan, the dragon, drew a third of the stars out of heaven. Now it's time for man to replenish. Again, I'm going to go in reverse order one more time for everyone can have an understanding. Replenish the Neanderthals, replenish the Cro-Magnon, and replenish the angels which were on the earth. So now our purpose is to what? To fulfill. Now, back to Daniel 7 and 10, he said, out came a fiery stream. I want you to read this, Deacon. It goes back to Daniel 7 and 10. Out came a fiery stream, and we got a number of individuals that were created. And that's just a ballpark figure, because he wasn't going to give us a number.
That's right.
He wasn't going to say 700 trillion, billion, billion. Okay? He just said 10,000 times 10,000, 1,000. So that means it's a continuous number, isn't it?
Yes.
Innumerable what? Angels.
Yes.
That's a
Yes.
number that you can't even count, he says. That's innumerable. You
Yes,
can't even put a
it
tag
is.
on it.
It is.
A numerical, you can't put a numerical value or tag on it. Read the latter part after their creation. What was said? Read that.
Thousands ministered unto him, and 10,000 times 10,000 stood before him.
I want the back part, Deacon.
The back part. The judgment was set,
There it is.
and the books were opened.
The judgments was set and the books was open. Now, you students of theology, go over to the 6th chapter of 1 Corinthians. You stay where you are, Deacon. I don't want you following. You stay right there. Minister Meadows, you go over to the 6th chapter of 1 Corinthians and read 6 and 1 and 2 and 3, I believe.
Dare any of you, excuse me, having a matter against another, excuse me, just let me clear my voice, go to the law before the unjust, and not before the saints.
Okay, go to the law before the unjust and not before who?
The saints.
Read the rest.
Do ye not know that the saints shall judge the world? And if the world shall be judged by you, are ye unworthy to judge the smallest matters? Know ye not that we shall judge angels?
Stop.
Okay.
Know ye not that ye should judge who?
Angels.
Angels. Just the back part of 7 and 10, the last part of 7 and 10 of Daniel, where it talks about we should judge angels. Read it.
The judgment was set, and the books were opened.
And so when he created the angels in 7 and 10, he already knew the status of them, and he already had a predetermined plan, a directive that he was going to initiate, called who? Mankind, multiply and replenish the earth, because he knew exactly what the angels were going to do. You ask the question, what is your purpose? It's a replacement program initiated on planet Earth.
That's incredible.
Okay? That's your purpose right there, because he knew that they were going to sin. Same thing in Isaiah 48 and 8. I know every treacherous act you will commit from your mother's womb. David seen it. And Psalms 51 and 17, I was born in what?
Into sin.
In the sin and shaping in iniquity.
And in sin was I conceived.
Yes.
So he knew our same, should we say, demise too, didn't he?
Yes,
Yeah.
it does.
And so actually, if you use Psalm 17, 51 and 17, I was born in sin, and iniquity did my mother conceive me. That's the same thing in Daniel 7 and 10. The judgment was set and the books was open. So the judgment was set and the books was open also upon us, wasn't it?
Yes,
Yes, it
Because he
was.
knew every
Right.
treacherous act in Isaiah 48 and 8 that we were commit for our mother's womb, and we were born into sin, and hell was already prepared for the devils and angels. We joined the ranks, didn't we?
Yes, yes.
So I guess that kind of substantiates 1 John 3 and 20, where it says the all-knowing God.
Yes, it does.
Okay, our judgment was set also, wasn't it?
Yes.
Read Revelation, not to go to it, but read Revelation 20, 11 through 15, talks about the great white
does.
throne.
Yes.
Okay, in Second Chronicles, I believe 5 and 10, like many theologians like to call it the beam of judgment. We all must appear before the judgment seat of Christ. Judgment seat of Christ. That's just it. The judgment seat. The judgment seat was already what? Substantiated prior to our development in Genesis 1, 26 and 27, because he knew that the fall was going to take place. And a scripture that we didn't read, Genesis 3 and 15, confirmed that we rebelled. Let's go to that, Deacon, real
Okay,
quickly now.
go to that.
Okay, go to that one. Now you can go there. 3 and 15 of Genesis, that the restoration efforts or plan that God has for man, God's plan for man,
Yes.
the restoration efforts were going to be initiated. Let's read that.
And I will put enmity between thee and the woman, and between thy seed and her seed. It shall bruise thy head, and thou shalt bruise his heel.
So, unlike the angels, no restoration is in, or should we say, are in effect for them.
You're right.
But there's a restoration, there's a comeback for us in effect
yes.
to this present time. You ask the question, what is my purpose? Your purpose is to fulfill the will of God, God's plan for man, multiply and replenish the earth. And he knew that our demise were associated with Satan also, because he knows all things, right? And we know what happened in Genesis, the 3rd chapter. The betrayal took place. We betrayed our Creator also, as Satan did. But yet, there's a restoration period for us. There's a reprisal for us. There's a second chance for us, because according to Hebrews 2 and 5, also Psalms, the 8th chapter, verse 3, down through 5 and 6 and 7, it says that what is man that thou art mindful of man, and the son of man that thou visit him? Why are we so important? Because of God's plan and what he has for us. Multiply and replenish the earth. Well, my friends, that's it for this evening. We'll continue with part 2 on this, the origin of man and his purpose on planet Earth, right here on this program. Any questions, comments, or concerns, direct them please to the email address that you see before you. Until next time, until all are one, God bless and have a good day.